Hey everyone, welcome back to the 10th episode of my Music by the Month recap series. Once again, it is time to go through the project of the song I released this month and have a look at the behind the scenes and just run through the process of how I made it. I'm also going to give some insight into the ideas and just keep following on from the narrative from last month. So yeah, let's get straight into the project and carry off where we left off. Alright, so for this one, if we remember last time in the narrative where we left off, it was this character and they had escaped from the prison and they had gone inside of this elevator and they'd started to rise up and it sort of cut off there. And this one they've sort of reached where they were going and now they've sort of entered this new room and they've sort of been met with this new environment. And what it is that they've found their friend that they were looking for and they're sort of trapped in this sort of machine type thing. They're not really sure what it is, but they can see them and they sort of see them crying out for them because they've sort of been reunited a little bit. And I sort of wanted to play on the ideas on each character having a part, and I wanted an instrument in the song to represent each one. So for the main character, I've gone for the main synth sound, which plays this main melody at this section, and it also comes in a little bit later on over here. And for the other character who they've just found and sort of who's trapped, I've gone for this really distorted electric guitar sound, and it sort of has this very aggressive, angry sound, and I sort of wanted to convey that, convey those feelings as if they were being represented from that character. And it sort of has this alternating call and response type thing going through the different instruments, showing how sort of what the characters are doing and sort of how they're interacting. It sort of starts off building up slowly with the trapped character having most of the space, and then it cuts off into the main character, who then goes and sort of progresses from there. I also sort of had the idea that they were sort of fighting against this machine thing. It's not really alive or anything, but it has a way to defend itself. So as they're trying to break out of it, it's sort of fighting back in a way. So that's sort of the idea. They're trying to free their friend and fighting against sort of the environment, I guess. Yeah, I'll sort of go and play a bit where there's both of the melodies of the instruments, so you can sort of get the idea of sort of the relationship and how they interact. Yeah, so there's the two elements there, and they sort of work together to create a fuller sound, where the melody of the main character is very fast-paced and it's quite rapid, while the guitar of the trap character is a lot sort of slower and it's sort of less sporadic, and it sort of has a very solid direction to where it goes, sort of showing how just the state of freedom each character's in at this point. And it sort of keeps progressing along where the main character there's a bit where the trap character or the guitar melody is sort of trying to break out it's almost in this cage type thing. It's not really they sort of don't really know what it is at this point, but it's definitely holding on to this character, and there's sort of this bit with the guitar melody that carries on for a bit where they are just trying to break out, like sort of physically. They're sort of standing facing each other and they're sort of trying to break it out, and the environment keeps sort of shifting around the room, like the floor's moving and the walls are sort of moving, and it's sort of knocking them around a bit, which makes it very difficult. But they do eventually get to break it out here, and I've sort of added a sound effect where it sort of echoes out a bit to sort of show them breaking up. And it sort of goes a bit quieter, and at this point in the process of freeing this character, they sort of damage the machine a lot, and whatever the environment is or whoever's controlling it sort of takes that quite personally and the whole room gets a lot more aggressive and a lot more dangerous. Yeah, so there's this point here, it sort of mellows down a bit where they're sort of just catching their breath, and yeah, and then the main melody of the synth sort of builds up again, and almost, at this point it sounds a lot more confident rather than angry, as they've sort of beaten this part of the environment, and so they're a lot more confident, and yeah, they've sort of, that anger of them finding their friend captured like that was sort of died down a bit as they've sort of gone past that. So the melody of the main character sort of builds up a bit, and it sort of keeps that same emotion, and then it sort of carries on to where the trap character has a melody that represents them, and it's a lot more reminiscent of the main character's melody, where it's very fast paced and there's less of a direction, as they're now both free, and it sort of has that in the melody. I'll just play that because it's sort of a lot of words and it's a bit hard to get the idea. So the main part here, the first part with the synth, is the main character sort of being a lot more confident and less angry, a lot more hopeful, and then the next bit with the guitar is sort of that other character sort of processing their freedom, and sort of they're working together to fight back against this environment or whoever's controlling it. Yeah, so there's quite a lot of progression there. Might have also noticed that the chords changed from just the 3 chords that sort of were looping before. The progression changed slightly, which it really changes the groove and the emotion of the section, and it really adds to the sort of more confident and yeah, just the more confident sound. I wanted these 2 melodies to very much work together, to represent the dynamic between the characters, as opposed to where they were sort of felt a lot more separated back here, where there were 2 different things. Now they're sort of merged together as one. But at the end of this section, I wanted to show the second character very, very sadly being killed by this machine that's sort of been shaken around the room and throwing things around. And the final note of this melody of sort of this character sort of fades on and sort of dies out a little bit, to sort of show that they do get killed by this machine, and the main character is sort of just left on their own, sort of in shock, as they just sort of had this moment where they were both completely free, and then now it's just the one. And I wanted to show how they are sort of processing this in the midst of this chaos, as this other machine, the environment is still throwing everything around. They don't feel like that they're at risk of being killed as well, as they've sort of the environment and this machine sort of settled back a bit after this other character was killed by them. And I sort of wanted to just keep the groove going, to sort of show how they can't really, everything still is carrying on, but they're sort of processing it, and there's this very steady melody played on the synth that's sort of looping over and over again, just sort of to represent how they're processing it, and it's this very sort of bittersweet sort of emotion going on. It's sort of a mix of anger and sort of sadness, while still being kind of hopeful, left over from before, and sort of just in shock. And yeah, so I just wanted to show that in this last section. Another detail I added is the chords that play, they change once again, but they're being played by an acoustic guitar to sort of show that the character that died is sort of still there with the characters sort of as they're thinking of them in their mind, and you know, it's not a melody that's being played by the guitar, but it's just these chords that are on every beat, sort of pushing the groove along and sort of driving this character forward until it sort of reaches the end, and it sort of dies out a bit as the machine is slowly sort of withdrawing itself back in, and the room's sort of seeing down, and it's sort of very quiet and very like oddly still for what has just happened. That's in contrast to what's going on in the character's head, until it just sort of, the piece just fades away and it'll lead to the next one. So I'll just play this last section, just get the idea, and then that'll be the main piece. So it's very chaotic, and there's a lot going on, but yeah, it sort of pushes the narrative forward a bit. I'll just play this last bit here just to get the idea of it. Yeah, so a lot going on in that last section, but yeah, it sort of concludes the piece, I think. A lot of the ideas that were sort of introduced, I think, closed up quite well, and it doesn't lead too much to be carried on with, but it does resolve a lot of the tension that was built up in the last few pieces. But of course, there's still more to go, as the narrative that was going on during this sort of did change a little bit. Despite closing up a lot of things, there's still the idea of what the machine is, and of course what's going to happen to this character and the one that died as well. Yeah, so I guess that's going to have to be revealed in the final 2 months. And yeah, so I guess stay tuned for November and December, and all will be revealed then.